I can't believe we had it. I mean, that's the big thing. We got it done. I think a lot of the skeptics were saying it wouldn't happen. So kudos to everybody involved that got it to that point. It was entertaining finish. And I think were a lot of things exposed during the tournament that we can use as a platform to build as a jumping off point to future improvements in our game. And hopefully we learned some things during COVID that we can carry over. I kind of like having everybody in more than 3 or 4 teams in a site. So it'll be interesting to see where all that goes. But great year for everybody. It was exciting for us. And just at the end of the day, really glad that we were able to get it accomplished.
All right, Paul, we'll start with you.
All right. Obviously, you got Sasha Goforth coming back to Fayetteville. What does she do for your team next year?
We get better defensively day one. She's been, that's the side of the ball that she's been very dominant on ever since she's picked up the game. She helps us with length. She helps us with rebounding. She's the type of scorer that fits with how we play. She's SEC caliber athlete. She's got a year of high level competition under her belt. Got to play a ton of minutes in a lot of big games. But I think at the end of the day, she's the Arkansas kid that came home. I think that's huge. We've now, when you put her and Marquisha and Aaron and Jersey coming in, that's the bulk of the players in state that have been at the elite level. We've got them all in the same uniform. So, and she wants to be here. I think that's the most important thing. She went out and now she wants to be a Razorback. And we all know what happens when kids get to that point. And she gives us on court, off court, helps us with our, attendance. Just everything that we need to continue the momentum in that we've got started, she adds in the plus column.
Jason, go ahead.
We all know what Amber brings on the floor, off the floor, and leadership. How important is that for this, trying to continue to build off of what you have going?
Well, there's a big load going to fall on Michaela Daniels' shoulders if Amber, would have decided to go ahead and go play professionally as well. So you mentioned it, you nailed it. The leadership, the understanding, they've been through it, they've been able to help. We're going to have a massive freshman class. It would have been too much for just Michaela to be able to do. So that gives us another upperclassman with experience, a very good awareness of the college landscape, and another voice in the locker room of, that NCAA experience that we had. Being able to tell the kids, this is what we have to do now so we go deeper into the tournament the next time we get there. It's not just one voice, there's multiple voices, and we're able to divide those loads up. And she knows what the SEC is like.
Nate, go ahead.
How healthy is Alana Eaton, and just what are you looking for from her next year?
She's way ahead of schedule on when you look at a player who's got a second ACL tear. We're still not rushing it because we're not in any hurry to, be in competition mode. But the thing that's been said in her mind is be ready when the time comes. You don't have to get ready, stay ready. And I saw when she came to me and said, Coach, as much as I want to go to the NCAA tournament, I do not want to miss rehab. I mean, that's mature. Most people don't see the big picture like that. So she stayed back to rehab. She's in great spirits. She's excited about Sasha coming home. She's excited about the incoming freshman. And even though she'll be a freshman, on the scorebook, she won't be acting like a freshman. She's healthy. She's good, making good progress. Really excited that she will be able to be conditioning and some light shooting throughout the summer, and then be ready to go full go when we come back and start summer 2 and the fall semester.
Also, where does Jersey fit into your plans?
mean, we're going to be changing some things because of her. We're going to change how we play in the half court a little bit. We're going to change how we play defensively a lot. Her, you know, her length and her size and her ability to guard a lot of different spots means that we will change offense and defense, as well as the people we put around her, not just because of Jersey, but I mean, I'm looking forward to see who's got the longest reach between her and Emory Ellis. Emory Ellis is just as long as she is. Ashlyn Sage is really, really long. Samara Spencer, we were foreseeing, you know, a natural progression of our seniors leaving and going to this longer, leaner overall team size. We may have the tallest team in the league next year. I mean, everybody's like, oh, whoa, what? Wait, what? But I mean, we really might. I don't know how everybody else is going to end up falling, but a lot of Tennessee's height graduated, so we're going to have some overall team size. But Jersey will change the way that we do some things, and you don't see a kid go through a growth spurt like that and stay the same position that she was. If y'all saw the McDonald's All-American thing that came out right before the tournament the other day that, you know, chronicled her upbringing, it just shows you how just how much that kid overcomes situations. And I think we've got I mean, people have used the term unicorn. I think we've got a unicorn. There's not very many people. There's not been a female that I can think of that grew that amount of that size and stayed the same position. Griner grew, but she stayed, you know, she grew early. She was always a post. None of those kids grew and stayed guards. So we're excited about how we're going to be able to utilize her. She's one of the hardest working kids. She hit me as soon as her season was over. She gave herself about a 8-hour celebration period and was ready to get to work. So she'll impact in a lot of ways, Nate.
Thank you.
Hutch, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, you already talked about Amber a little bit, but were you surprised at all by her decision to come back and not pursue professionally?
Not really, just because of how she's been talking about it throughout the year. You know, her professional guy, she wants to be a coach. And, you know, part of that is she knows that we're kind of rely upon her as a little bit of a coach this year as a leader. So I think once everybody else kind of started making their decisions, you know, I think she looked at it, wait a second, there's a really good opportunity. And then, you know, the advice of, you know, talking to Plum, you know, the college life at the Division I SEC level, it's pretty good. You know, I think she talked to Alexis Tolfree and people that have gone and played overseas and said, man, there's a lot of people that advise you to stay in college as long as you can. So I think she got good advice. I think it fits who she is. And like she said in her release, she's got some things she'd like to finish. So I wasn't shocked, but was pleasantly surprised that she wanted to take on that task because it's a big task. And her role will change a little bit too. You know, we talked to her about that, you know, when you come back for that, you know, quote, extra year, there's going to be some things that'll change a little bit and make sure you're okay with that. And she was on board. She is going to be an extra coach out there for us, believe me.
And with Alana, what exactly is she going to bring to the court? What does she do well? How will she help y'all's team?
She stretches the defense with her range. She's got, you know, the ability to shoot it out there from range. But if you close out too bad, she can go by you too. So the thing I think she gives us best is rebounding. You're talking about a kid that was a big time rebounder throughout the summer circuit and her high school team. She had a lot of 15, 20 rebound games. She seeks the ball out. We will improve on rebounding because she's in the lineup. She's instinctively a great passer, just a tremendous look for passer. And she's got a little bit of that size that we struggled to play against. We'll now have on our size, big guard. And she loves the game. I mean, this kid's eat up with it. She is one of those kids that is eat up with basketball.
Russell, go ahead.
Coach, could you talk just a little bit about how you've gotten this program to a point where you're getting upset in the first round of the NCAA tournament
Yeah. I mean, we got lucky. There's a lot of randomness that luck came in that Chelsea Dungy was available right when we were coming in. That was a little bit of stroke of luck. The following things all had to kind of fall together. The rest of our league there was some transition going on in our league. We were able to catch some people a little bit faster than maybe anticipated, going from, again, being picked down toward the bottom to being in. The right people stayed. Jalen Mason staying. We found Taylor. Luckily, if Taylor's not playing for a former Lady Razorback, we probably don't get her. The transfer market was starting to be very, very positive, and we were able to capitalize on it. Then, we were able to get the right people as a staff to come initially, and then come aboard when we had the one change that we've had since we've been here. Just a lot of stable things. And the other thing, I don't talk about it a lot, Dorita Dawkins coming in and becoming our sport administrator was a huge thing. This is somebody who's really helped us behind the scenes make women's basketball important. And obviously her being on the selection committee shows you how valuable and how respected she is among leaders in our industry. So we were all right place, right time. We went through it, for me personally, going through an athletic director change, we hit, a gold mine in Hunter Yurachek, somebody that came in and listened and made me and us feel like we were one of his, even though we won't ever technically be classified as one of his hires. We should be, because he rehired us and has made women's basketball important. And Chancellor Steinmetz and Sandy that come to our games, the timing everything was all about timing. So a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work. I'm not going to say it was all luck. These people down the hall, Amber Shire's staying on. If she doesn't stay, this thing probably doesn't get going as fast. And everything just fell into place. Right time, right place. Hopefully it's now something, like you said, getting it to a place where NCAA tournaments are the expectation. I'm sitting here, wrapping up the year. I just told Michaela Daniels, I think a goal for her should be to become the first Lady Razorback in history to play in 4 NCAA tournaments or qualify for. She can't play in them all. But for for ranking them and be the first playing for, actually go to them. There's things like that out there for us. Chelsea becoming the second All-American and all the different things that have happened positively. I think got a really good chance of having 2 kids drafted next Thursday. I think there's a whole bunch of things that have raised the bar to where, we get talked about like all our other sports. We lose the game in the NCAA tournament, time to fire neighbors. That's like a check. If it's not being talked about, then if we're not getting a caller on the morning drive shows and things like that, then we're there. We have arrived. We are like everybody else. I remember when Dave Van Horn was going to get fired for bunting or not bunting one time. So that's kind of a sign of a badge of honor. Somebody's ready to run us out.
Tyler, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, you kind of touched on this back at the beginning, but if you look at the roster next year, you could presumably run a lineup out there that's, Fayetteville High School, Springdale High School, Northside High School, Little Rock, Nettleton, with a Greenwood guy on the bench. Just what does that mean to you and just to the state as a whole?
A lot, because we talk about it all the time. Everybody says it in their press conference about, some metaphor about a fence or a wall or a compound or a fortress of some sort. You talk about it, but it's hard to do sometimes. And I'm glad that we've been able to kind of get that going in that direction. And hopefully that can be something that we continue to do, build it with those kids. And I think you can't build a full team that way. It just doesn't work that way. But it's great that we've got the kids who are watching, hoping to come here and play. We're going to have to tell some people, no, you can only take so many. But wanting to be here is the huge part of that. And it is exciting. And I look at, I've got it written down there. Once Sasha called, I started looking at potential lineups. And I know we're not going to be picked as high as we have in the past, and that's back to where I like to live in that sweet spot of low expectations. People not being shocked that we're not picked in the preseason. I live in that area. We like that, so it'll be fun to get this group going.
Brad, do you have anything?
I do. Mike, this era of free agency has just changed everything in basketball, and it feels like COVID's dumped gasoline on that. For a long time, you prided yourself on not having a lot of drama at the end of the year, kind of the comings and goings. It's just part of the deal now. How have you personally adapted to that? And does having these 2 or 3 in-state stars help that, because then you can kind of build around them?
We didn't have any drama at the end of the year. I can assure you that there were no hard feelings on these kids that have opted to continue playing. They had to go into the portal. If everybody understands how that works, when you graduate after 4 years, that's what you do. So we didn't have any drama at all. So that's the one good thing. But roster management is a new thing, Brett. That's the term that COVID gave us. We didn't have that as coaches. We could predict that a long time in advance. Not knowing how some of these kids wanted to pursue and what was going to be available for everybody created some consternation middle of the year, because if all 7 would have come back and everybody would have come in and Sasha I'd have had 23 people on our roster. We don't have enough room in the locker room for that. So it is something that we thought about. It's something we talked about. It's something that I think we managed really, really well. But I don't think we're going to have to worry about it, beyond this as far as the stacking up. You're still going to have people that want to go in and out of the portal and the transfer. And I think that is something that I've had to adapt to, and I have. I'm okay with it. It is something that the rules of the game's changed. So you got to adapt or die. So I got over it that, some people aren't going to be here for 4 or 5 years. And that's okay, because if you've looked at how it works, about the time that happens, your phone starts ringing. There's no recruiting in this. On our side, I don't know what it's like over on there. Their side's different. I didn't have to call Sasha. She called me. So that's the way it's worked for us. It's a little different, but it is something I think that will become a part of our game. But it'll cycle out. It'll filter out and go to something new in a couple of years. It always does.
Follow-ups for Coach. Yeah, Hutch, go ahead.
Mike, along those same lines, I haven't sat down and wrote out what your roster looks like for next year, but do you have open spots still? Are you still looking in the portal for possible additions?
Yeah, it'd have to be a kid with a certain size requirement and history. We're set in some spots, and I'm not going to bring somebody in that's going to, be in competition with Marquisha. Marquisha's earned her opportunity next year to roll out there day one as somebody that's a starter. And I'm not going to bring somebody in like Marquisha. It would be somebody that everybody on this call would look at and go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That would make sense. And there's, obviously everybody's always looking for that mythical 6'5", 6'6" kid that people think walks around and we just don't try to get. And we're trying. They're very, very few and far between. And we're not going to recruit somebody that's just 6'4" and can't play in the SEC. So we'll bring somebody in that's SEC ready. As you know, it's changing, not even hourly, but by the minute. But yeah, there's spots on the roster should something pop up, and we'll save it if not. But if the right person popped in there that made sense to everybody, then there could still be some movement.
Jason, go ahead.
We've talked a lot about the roster, but schematically, does anything change with how you play with this roster?
Yeah.
To go from a team that likes to score a lot? Because I think if you were able to rebound maybe the Ole Miss game and the Wright State game, you were moving on. Is there anything how you change with what you have coming in and how you look at the roster?
Yeah, we will be better in all those facets, in all those areas, because of graduation. What we have always done is we have tried to adapt to the team that we have. You look at our team at Xavier, where I was there with Kevin, we had 3 post players over 6'5". We pounded that thing inside, and we played games in the 50s. Well, we couldn't get those kids when we got here. We had to get Chelsea's and IT's and Amber's and Slocum's and play that way. And I wasn't about to change right in the middle of Chelsea's junior year our style of play. So we wrote it out the best we could to get the team that we have now. But yeah, you're going to see some changes. And we'll talk about it right now. We'll break the news. Todd's taking over some offensive stuff, and I'm going to the defense. We're going to run a lot of Princeton actions, which he's coached for a number of years. It's something we've looked at doing ever since we knew Jersey was coming, because Nicole Powell is probably the closest player in the history of our game to compare to her. So and Todd's a Princeton guy. He teaches it better than I do. So he'll take over probably some of our half-court offense. And I'm going to go back to the defensive side of the ball, where I spent my first 14 years as an assistant. I love it. Everybody thinks I'm an offensive jack it up, run up and down, but that's just because that was the role I was in. But we're still going to play fast. Don't mistake that. That is still the way you have to win. And there's been a lot of defensive wins, championships, banners popping back up after the last couple. But if you look deeper, the team that played better offensively was probably still the team that won. So we will be better defensively. We will be better rebounding. We're going to play a lot of zone with that size. We'll be able to do some things, I think, defensively that'll be disruptive, that will help us. And in hindsight, may have helped us win some games that we lost, but I don't think we would have necessarily been able to beat UConn or Baylor or some of the wins that we did have too. There's a trade-off there. I think we'll become a more balanced offensive to defensive team, kind of like our teams at Washington did in year 4 and 5 when we got our roster built like we wanted it to. So I think we'll still be very exciting offensively. Our shot selection will be a little different. I would also make this prediction. I don't think we'll have one player average over 30 minutes a game next year. I just don't. I mean, looking at it on paper, unless something changes, we'll play a lot deeper. And that comes along with being able to play more aggressively defensively. You don't have to worry about fouls as much. You don't have to worry about legs as much. So I think we'll become a more complete team. And like I said, may not have the preseason accolades and expectations of everybody else, but I will tell you this, that there's nothing changed up here. I think this roster can finish with a winning record in the SEC, which would be the first time in school history. I think we could be considered an NCAA tournament team. And I'll be disappointed if we're not, because I think we've got the makings and we've got the mentality of being able to do all of those things. So my expectations are even higher than what we had this year. And I know that the players are too. But yeah, it's going to look different. And some people are probably going to say, well, in a good way. I'm fine with that. We had to do what we had to do. The dominoes don't get knocked down. We don't get Jersey Wolfenbarger to come here if we're not winning. That's a fact. I mean, y'all saw it. Y'all saw the people that were recruiting her. We don't get her if we're not showing progress. We don't get the transfers. It doesn't happen if you try to. And I got dominoes out of order. I admitted that to y'all at the end of the year. I got a little. We missed that domino. Going to the tournament and experiencing the tournament. We got down there expecting to win the whole thing before we ever even knew what it felt like to be there. And it'll always have an asterisk in my mind, because I know for a fact it would have given us a great opportunity playing right across over there. I'm pointing at Bud Walton Arena. Had we been a 4 seed and got to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, I think we'd had 15,000 people in there, and who knows. So this season will always have that could have been, would have been. I get that. But the fact that we got through it and everybody got through it the way they did, there will be no regrets about it, but it will always be remembered as what I think could have been had we had the year last year. Had we had last year to go down and play in the NCAA tournament and learn from it, this could have been, a breakthrough type year. But when I look at the list of things this group accomplished, I'm not spending 1 second regretting it.
Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, just for Chelsea, for Destiny going forward, just professionally, what are your expectations?
Just that they get an opportunity to pursue their dream, which is, getting paid to play basketball. I think it's going to happen for both of them. The draft, our side is completely different. We've got 12 teams and 3 rounds. So there's only 36 people that are going to get picked next week. I've talked to somebody within every organization except for one. So I fully suspect both of those kids will be announced at some point during the time. Chelsea's, I've heard as high as 4 people that have a pick up that high and, into the early second round, just depending on needs, because that is the hardest league to make. There's only 12 teams. Not all of them even carry 12 players. Some of them can only carry 11 because of their roster cap and their injuries. So there's not even 144 jobs to go around. It is an Olympic year, so there's some chances there. But, and just sitting down and discussing the options with them as they were going through hiring their agents and things, just to see their excitement of that's their next chapter. They loved it here. And I think there was a time they thought about it. But, man, if you put yourself in those kids have been in college for 5 years. It's time. They were excited about the opportunity to go and go into the next phase of basketball and their lives. And it's just going to be fun to follow them. I'm really looking forward to the draft itself and then the camps. Traditionally, I don't know what travel is going to be like, but traditionally I've always gone to those camps and watched them work out. So I look forward to being able to do that if both of those kids do get drafted and make a training camp.
Any other questions for Coach?
Hey, Mike, I just can you go into a little more detail from a defensive side? I mean, that's just, I know you said you probably play a little more zone, but what does that entail being different?
I think putting a little more pressure, maybe extending full court, looking to turn the ball over, looking to create some turnovers a little bit at times, use our length to be disruptive. You can gamble a little bit more when you can rebound behind it. If you can't rebound behind, we're already at a disadvantage already. We may send 4 to the glass on offense where we've been only sending 2.5. So I think those will be some changes because of the personnel change. I don't know if that answers your question specifically, but a little bit more pressure, a little more disruption, less percentage based. More trying to make them trying to force the action a little bit more, but we won't delve across from the fact that we still know at the end of the day we've got to come up with stops. So we won't gamble too far. We'll find that happy medium between scouting report defense and then what we can go put on people. But I don't think it would be foolish if we had the roster we have and we continued just to play percentage-based defense, because now that we can rebound, I think we can block some shots. I think Marquisha can steal it a little bit more often, given the opportunity to do so. And not having to play, if somebody's not having to play 35 minutes, they can expend a little bit more energy on defense. So I think there'll be a mentality shift. We've always tried to stop people. I mean, people all the time say we don't care about defense. That's not even close to the truth, but I understand why it gets said. But I don't think, I think it'll be noticeable. I don't think we're going to have to talk about it, Paul. I think when y'all get to come, you're going to go, oh, well, that looks a little bit different.
Well, and one other thing you said was, is this personnel based as far as making choices to send more to the glass at different times? Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't do you any good to send Amber to the glass if she's going to get 1 out of 75 and give up 40, points on the other end. So there's some analytics that go into it. There's some way we prepare, but it all goes back to your roster. It all goes back to your roster. We're going to have a roster that allows us to play that way. And I think it's a roster that allows us to continue to play against some of the best teams and give ourselves a chance to win, maybe on a night when our shots aren't falling. We might win 1 or 2 more games, or we might pull away from a closer game that we were able to win. We will never do anything that diverts from being able to compete against the best teams, though. So we'll still focus a lot on offense, and we'll still be fast in transition, but the half-court attack, the tactics will just be a little different. not as many ball screens, probably, certainly not as many isolation plays. Again, I think we had one of the best ISO players that's played in the last 4 years. Running the Princeton with her I should have been fired. Now, also, if we don't make a change because we don't have her anymore, I should be fired too. So adapting to the players that we've brought in and the players that have ended up in our locker room, that's what I think what we have to do, give ourselves the best chance to win. And it'll be a fun off season. We've already started talking about it. We've already, pulled film on certain teams and certain players, and kind of a reinvigorating summer for us, I think. I hope. It doesn't look like we're going to be off campus recruiting again, so we're going to have plenty of time in the film room.
Thanks, Mike.
You got it.
All right, everybody. We'll go ahead and wrap it there.
See ya.